Hi, everyone, and welcome here to our first show here on L Stanzik Sports YouTube channel. This is our first show of the year. This is going to be kind of our theme on Thursdays. We're going to try to do this as best we can. Our fantasy football Thursdays. Again, this is kind of a project I'm going to undertake here. As you can see, I'm in a sling. A lot of you I know who are my friends that are listening probably know this already, but I'm currently in a sling. So I kind of came up with this idea to give me something to do and to just kind of like a hobby to dive into. I've always wanted to do something like this. I started doing some of this on Primetime Sports with Eric Willowite last year, but I kind of wanted to do a little bit more of it, do it myself. So I figured it was a perfect time. I'm kind of stuck here in a sling, watching sports, and kind of wanted to have an outlet somewhere to talk about it. So here we are. Thanks for following the Facebook page. If you haven't already, please do so. You also can see that we're doing this through YouTube, and I set up a Twitch today. We may use that at some point in the future to do some stuff video game wise. You know, people usually do a lot of things on there. I see a lot of people do throwbacks and whatnot. So I have PS2 right behind me here. We may do some streaming at some point with that. That'll probably be down the road. But our Thursday shows here, we're going to try to dive into some fantasy football stuff. What are some of the key topics of the week that people are talking about? Some moves, some injuries, things like that. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to also give what I'm going to call plays and stayaways, some guys that are kind of on the fence if you should play them or not, if you should put them in your lineup, or if you should sit them. And then also, if anyone's listening has any start-sit questions, they can feel free to submit those, and we'll answer them on air. I know my buddy, who I'm going to plug his show every Thursday when I do it, my buddy Mark Rubel does his Rube's Fantasy Football Hotline show on Saturdays. I believe he's doing it Friday night this week, but he normally does it on Saturdays. So we can – I know a lot of people will submit questions to him, so I want you to continue to do that. But if you have me here as well, feel free to ask away. We'll answer them. But we have a lot of content to go over whether we have that or not. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First, we're going to talk about this guy right here. There he is, Antonio Brown. If you did not see the tweet from earlier yesterday from reporter extraordinaire Adam Schefter, there it is. His suspension is eligible to end after next week's games, and he's saying the Seahawks are, quote unquote, the front runners or leaders to sign him. So what does that mean? If the Seahawks were to sign Antonio Brown, what exactly does that mean for him? And we're going to kind of play some content off to the side here as we talk about it. So Antonio Brown signed with Seattle would obviously be very interesting. They already look like the best team in the NFC, but signing him would obviously give them another weapon to go along with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now, how much volume would he actually see, though, is an interesting question. He's someone, what you're watching right now on the screen, that's from week 2 of last year. That's the last time we've seen him on an NFL field. And that was the only game he played before he left the team, before he got suspended, got in all kinds of legal trouble. So who knows exactly what he's going to do, what he's going to provide for the Seattle Seahawks if he does sign there. It seems like they are the front runners. We're going to talk about them a lot here because he had worked out with Russell Wilson in the offseason. That was kind of a big story for them. And he was someone who, it looked like he was going to sign there, and then the suspension thing got handed down, and that kind of put a damper on that. So I would expect that that's where he would end up going if that were to be the case. But if he goes there, what really is the best case scenario for you if you have him, if you go and win, pick him up, put him on your bench in fantasy? I think you're probably looking at someone who maybe could be a flex guy at some point. You may put him in your lineup and hope he pans out and does something, gives you a couple touchdowns between now and the end of the year. He's not taking away value from DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. They're firmly entrenched as top 2 guys. They're top 15 guys for fantasy. They have been pretty much all season long, and they're going to continue to be that, even with Antonio Brown there. I don't think that's going to change. They're really letting rush world football this year. They do play. I was doing some research. They do play 3 wide receiver sets over 70% of the time. That's one of the top teams in the NFL lining up in that type of personnel. So I think eventually working his way into things, he's got to clear COVID protocols if he signs. It's going to take him a while to learn the playbook. But so I think he will have value. But I wouldn't expect him to win a league for you. I don't, and I think people are going to see the name Antonio Brown and think, oh, if I get him, he's going to be top 10. He's Antonio Brown. He was on the Steelers. He was legit. That's not going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think he can add value and do something for fantasy teams if he ends up signing and gets eased into things. So I think the way you approach this, if you're sitting in your waivers still or thinking about trading for him, don't expect more than that. He's worth if you have the roster spot, putting him on your bench, leaving him there. And, if he doesn't sign or it doesn't pan out, you just cut him, at this point. So I think he's worth an ad. I added him in a few leagues where I could afford it. There's some spaces where I needed all the spots on my roster to fill with players that are actually on teams at this point in time. Just couldn't do that. But if you can, I think that is a very good idea and a very good option. Next up, we're going to talk about this guy, as you can see on the screen here. We got Le'Veon Bell. Big trade last week went down in the NFL. Le'Veon Bell going to it wasn't a trade, it was actually a signing. Actually, the Jets released him, and he ended up signing with Kansas City to basically went from worst to first. Went from the worst team in the NFL to the best team in the NFL, possibly in Kansas City. So what does that mean for the Chiefs' backfield? Because they already have a guy who's been a top 15, top 20 running back this year, depending on your format, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I believe, is how the age is silent. How you're supposed to pronounce that. But so what does that mean? Well, what is he going to do fantasy-wise? What are you going to get from Le'Veon Bell, and what are you going to get from Clyde the rest of the way? I think the answer to that is going to be pretty simple. I think if you take a look, I can kind of compare this to the way the Browns' backfield was earlier this year when they had both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt involved. Kareem Hunt was kind of the best catching type guy, and Lev Bell kind of was not Lev Bell. Nick Chubb was kind of your first and second down type. I think you're going to see a similar situation. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's seeing 67% of snaps for them now. I think they may drop a little bit, but he's going to be their leading rusher. He's going to get the ball on first and second down. He's done a good job of that. Where Clyde has struggled is in the passing game and in the red zone. He hasn't been able to score. He hasn't scored touchdowns for you. That's been the reason why he hasn't been a top 5 or top 6 running back. Just because touchdowns haven't been there. He hasn't shown a propensity to score, as you can see on the screen right now, perfect timing. He hasn't shown a propensity to score around the goal line. And Lev Bell obviously does that better than anyone, almost as good as anyone in the NFL. Doesn't get many chances to do that on the Jets, so he's probably going to be happy he's going to be somewhere else now. But Lev Bell, I think, is a guy who's going to present some touchdowns for you and is going to do it pretty early. The Chiefs were pretty cautious with him early, though I saw the report this week that Andy Reid came out and said don't expect him to be a big part of the offense right away. He may not even be active. He's in a playbook. You don't got to know much of a playbook to get the ball on the 5-yard line and run up the middle. And I think that they're going to do that this weekend if he has the ball. If the Chiefs are on the 2 or 3 yard line, I think Lev Bell's going to be in the game. He's going to be punching it in. I think that's what they're going to do. And I think he will be that guy for them for the foreseeable future, for the rest of the season. Not a bad guy to be in the Chiefs offense because they're going to be down by the goal line a lot because of the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think you can use them. I would be a little careful about playing Lev Bell this week. I think he's kind of more of a shot in the dark play, but I think moving forward, after this week, after he learns playbook, he's going to be a guy you can flex almost every week. And I think Clyde is still going to have his value. Obviously, gets knocked down a little bit because I think his carries are going to drop a little bit, but he's still going to get the ball. He's still going to lead him in rushing. They control time of possession almost every game. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a guy who I think can be, your RB2. Maybe a high-end flex some weeks if he's got a tough matchup. But I think his guy are definitely going to start. I think he's an RB2, even with this Lev Bell signing. I think it's actually a good time to probably try to go and trade for him because the Clyde Edwards-Helaire owner might be worried about him, might be scared that his value is going to be shot. Go get him on the cheap while the fear is still there before he still gets the ball. That's what I would try to do. I think that's where this is heading. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Chiefs offense the rest of the way. Our third fantasy topic we're going to talk about is the big change in Miami. Tua Tagovailoa in at quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, taking over for Ryan Fitzpatrick, as you can see there. This was an interesting move because Fitzmagic, the bearded one, has been he was a quarterback 10 on the year so far for fantasy. It's not like he hadn't been working out. Like, it has been working for them. They're actually in the playoff one. They're 3-3, and they had won the last couple of games. And we're going to take a look at Tua here from his time at Alabama. He's someone who it's hard to say what you're going to see from him in the NFL. He's coming off of a bad injury, complete change of, sort of style from Ryan Fitzpatrick. Tua likes to run a little bit. He's left-handed. It's an adjustment. So what are you going to see? I think this is a big bold move by the Miami Dolphins to put him in at this point in time, given the fact that they had won a couple of games in a row and they have been playing really well. So what are you going to see from him is kind of the big mystery. And how is it going to impact the rest of the weapons that Miami has on offense? You already have Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Myles Gaskin are like the three main guys you've probably been playing. Tua in college, they like to spread the ball around, especially his 2018 stats. If you go back and look, running backs, tight ends, receivers all saw a ton of receptions. Last year was a little more receiver heavy for them. I think that was just the way their team was constructed. But I think you got to look at all Dolphins players, and they got to probably take a little bit of a peg down at this point. If you were playing Parker as your wide receiver too, he might be a low-end wide receiver too or a flex. Preston Williams, to me, probably is a bench guy. Myles Gaskin probably falls from RB2 to a flex. So I think that's how I would look at it, but we don't know what we're going to see from Tua until we see him play. We don't know. He threw 2 passes last week in garbage time. Like, we don't know what exactly he's going to do, how he's going to be, who he's going to target, what his tendencies are going to be. Is Gesicki going to wake up with him in there? We know rookie quarterbacks like to throw to tight ends. But the one thing that's pretty safe to say, I think, is he is not going to be the quarterback 10 like Ryan Fitzpatrick was. That doesn't happen with rookies. It hasn't happened with Joe Burrow this year outside of a couple of weeks. The last time a rookie quarterback finished in the top 10 for fantasy in a full season was Andrew Luck, was the quarterback 9 in 2012. Now, Deshaun Watson probably would have been that in 2017 if he had played the whole year. But case in point, it doesn't happen very often. So you can't expect Tua to play at the level that Fitzpatrick did for fantasy the rest of the year. And if his level drops, if he's not scoring points for fantasy, then Devontae Parker's value goes down, Preston Williams' value goes down, Myles Gaskin's value goes down. It's a ripple effect. So, I would proceed with caution with all the Dolphins guys. Tua is not somebody that would be on my radar to stream right away. If he gets in there and proves himself and shows that he can really, push the ball in the outfield, orchestrate an offense, then I would think about it. But until then, I don't really think it's in the cards, and I wouldn't think about playing him, or I would just maybe look to pivot elsewhere for some of the Miami guys. All right, last couple of segments here. All these videos are going to be pretty quick. We're not going to spend a ton of time here. I know everyone's got lives. I do too. I don't want this to be a super long, drawn-out thing. And we're going to do this. We're going to do videos probably a couple times a week. We're going to try to shoot for it. So we're going to do one more quick little thing here. We were doing this on our old show too, that I did on Facebook Live on my own page. We did, starts or, plays of the week, sits of the week. So we're going to do that here too. We're going to do my plays and my stayaways. We're going to pick one from each position: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. And this isn't going to be a guy that like you're surefire going to start like ever. It's out. Start Calvin Ridley or start Christian McCaffrey when he's healthy. Like, of course you're going to do that. I'm not going to state the obvious, but it's going to be someone that's kind of a fringe and someone I think, that maybe you would guarantee to be a star every week. And I'm going to tell you why you should play. So we're going to look at that, and I may be looking down my phone a little bit because I have notes in here. As you can see, I have showed you my sling earlier. So typing like a notepad on the computer is hard. So I have it like laid out on my phone instead here on like docs. So if I look down at my phone, that's what I'm doing. I'm not ignoring the camera. That's what I was doing earlier. So we're going to start with the plays. We'll go there first. And a guy I think you should be playing this week, and we'll see if we can get our screen back in order over here as I'm trying to do two screens at once with one arm. This will go much smoother on my end when I have two working arms. We are going to look at someone who's playing tonight, actually. I think you should be playing Carson Wentz this week. I think he is someone who, he's had an interesting year. He's kind of been that stream-ish area all season long. He's been the quarterback 15 so far in the year. So most leagues have 12 teams. So right in that range of, kind of a fringe starter. But last week he was a QB4 versus Baltimore versus a good defense. So I think he's starting to find chemistry with some guys. Travis Fulgham has emerged for him. Deshaun Jackson should be back tonight, it looks like. They did lose Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, but he had some looks to Richard Rodgers last week. The Giants stink. We know that to be true. So I think you can play Carson Wentz. I think he's someone who they're going to lean on him a little bit more this week without Miles Sanders in the fold. I think they're going to throw the ball a little bit. He did not have a great game week 1 without Miles Sanders. They also weren't playing the Giants. They're playing the Giants tonight. So that always helps when you play the Giants. So I think Carson Wentz is someone you could play. We're going to grade these start plays and stay away at the beginning of each Thursday when we do this segment. If he finishes in the top 12, it'll be a plus. If he doesn't, it'll be a minus. I may put some stipulations on that if it's like an obvious thing. Make it a little harder on me. But we're going to say Carson Wentz, he's going to be a top 12 quarterback this week. And I think you should be playing him, I think for sure. Running back wise, we're going to look at a guy. This is a more of a shot in the dark. This is going to be a tough one. And we're going to say for running backs and receivers if they should be top 30, because that also kind of covers the top 12, 1 to 12 for RB1, 13 to 24 RB2, and then 1 through 6 for each for a flex. So someone who's going to give you value in your lineup compared to if you didn't play him. Zach Moss this week. I shot in the dark pick. I think Zach Moss is going to be a guy that is going to probably find the end zone. Cool coincidence seeing this picture. Playing the Jets. He's playing the Jets this week too. So that helps. Again, you're playing a bad team. You're playing the Jets. I think that helps your lineup. They're going to be up big. I don't think the Jets keep this game close, which means they're going to be up. And he's RB2 on the team. He also gets a lot of goal line work, steals Singletary sometimes. So this game, I think he's going to steal even more work. He's going to be in there on the goal line. He's probably going to get some series late in the game when the game's out of reach. I think Zach Moss is a decent play. I'm not saying start him over like a surefire guy, but if you got like 3 or 4 guys you're decided against for your flex, I'd play Zach Moss. I think he's going to have a decent fantasy game. You probably can't say that a ton this year about him. So I think Zach Moss is a guy I'm going to say this week he's a top 30 running back. I think he finishes that way. And I think you can play him and feel somewhat confident that he's going to get a little bit more work than he normally does here moving forward. Next one, kind of a different approach. We're going to go with a better guy, a guy you're probably already starting. And we don't have the big blown up picture. Or do we here? There we go. Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry, I think, is someone this week who, theme of the week, playing a bad team. He's playing the Cowboys. You probably all watched Monday Night Football and saw what happened. So he is going to be someone who can stretch the field. I think you're going to get one big play out of him this week. He has been a top 15 fantasy receiver, but he's also been a top 5 guy in targets in the NFL. So the ceiling is higher than what he's already done. And I think a lot of people kind of expected him to be a top 10 guy, and he hasn't been that yet for fantasy. Don't be discouraged. The targets are still there. I think their quarterback situation is about to get settled with Kyle Allen. I think they're going to start to build some chemistry. He's probably going to be in there the rest of the season. And he's probably the most talented passer between him and Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith, older Alex Smith at this point. So I think you're going to see Scary Terry start to take off. It's going to start this week. I'm going to say that McLaurin, we're going to grade me on this, going to be a wide receiver 1 this week, so between 1 and 12. He's a wide receiver 15 on the year. I think he's going to be between 1 and 12 this week because the matchup is that good. Real quick, at tight end, won't spend a ton of time on this one, but that is Richard Rodgers. You may remember him as Mr. Hail Mary from Aaron Rodgers. It was Rodgers to Rodgers Hail Mary back when he was with the Packers in Ford Field in Detroit. He is the next man up at tight end for the Eagles. We know Carson Wentz likes to throw to his tight ends. And I think it's going to happen even more this week, tonight, because Travis Fulgham on the outside is probably going to draw James Bradberry, who actually has been really good for the Giants. He's been a big bright spot for them. Shut down Allen Robinson in week 2. He's had some other nice games. So I think he's going to look Richard Rodgers' way a lot. I think Richard Rodgers might sting it to the end zone. And I think this is a very good stream play at tight end. If you say you have Mark Andrews, he's on bye. You got some time here before the game starts. Pick up Richard Rodgers, stream him. I think he's going to be a top 12 tight end this week. Another pretty bold pick, but we're going to go with it. Now we're going to go with our next one. We're going to close the show with this, unless anyone else has any questions. Stayaways. So these are guys you should not be playing. The opposite. They're going to finish outside of the starter's room. We're going to start here at quarterback with Andy Dalton. I know this should be pretty obvious, but I've seen a lot of chatter like that's as bad as it's going to get. Andy Dalton's going to be better. He's playing a bad team this week in Washington. Don't get cute with it. We saw a really bad quarterback on Monday Night Football versus the Cardinals. He's still trying to get used to things. The Cowboys' offensive line is terrible this year. They're banged up. They're hurt. He doesn't have any mobility. I think life's going to be tough on him most of the time. And I think for me, this is a wait and see and prove it to me approach before I play him. I think you need to see Andy Dalton go out there and have a really good game before you play him in your lineup. I'm not going to do that right away. I'm not going to do it this week, even though they're playing a bad team. I still think he finishes outside the top 12. Probably hard to get worse than he did on Monday night. It's probably gets a little better, but I still no shot on playing him. Stay away from Andy Dalton. Also, a guy I would sit, Melvin Gordon. And this is the guy you're probably playing, right? Like he's someone who's a starting NFL running back for a team that likes to run the football in Denver. We also, and I see we have a question. Thanks, Jason, for listening. We're going to get to that in a minute. But Melvin Gordon, someone this year who has been all right. Had one big game versus the Jets to kind of lift his value a little bit. But Melvin Gordon plays the Chiefs this week. Also coming off the strep throat and had the DUI arrest. Doesn't sound like he's going to be disciplined by the team. Sounds like he's going to be active, but I always have that lingering fear of what if they do something in game. We don't know about the penalty. We don't know about the punishment type of thing. So a little concerned about that with Melvin Gordon. Also, Philip Lindsay had a great game last week, so I think he may see some run. They're not going to have the ball a ton versus Kansas City. Kansas City's been a good defense. I think Melvin Gordon's going to finish outside the top 30. Going to be a rare occurrence because I think he's a good running back. But this week, I would look to pivot to another option if you have one. Wide receiver. Shock to most people because everyone knows me well. Robert Woods is one of my favorite receivers in fantasy. He's just consistent. He's reliable. The most consistent wide receiver 2 with sometimes a wide receiver 1 upside you're going to find is Bob Woods. I absolutely love owning him. But he goes up against the Bears this week, and the newfound guy who's gone from very good to elite this season, and Kyle Fuller. In front of me here on my phone, I have what his matchups have put out. So receivers who have lined up against Kyle Fuller, this is in PPR. This has been their scores each week. So the first 6 weeks. Week 1, 9.5, Marvin Jones. Week 2, Darius Slayton, 6.3. Week 3, Calvin Ridley, 16.7, which is a pretty good week. That was kind of one big play made that. Week 4, T.Y. Hilton, 5.9. Week 5, Mike Evans, 15.1. That was on a short touchdown, bumped that up. He only had 41 yards receiving. And last week, Robbie Anderson, 11.7. That was one of his worst weeks on the year. I think Bob Woods is going to come in lower than all of that, lower than all the double digits. Probably will be a single-digit guy this week. I feel pretty strongly about it. Cooper Kupp lines up in the slot most of the time, so he's going to be drawing Buster Screen So I think it's going to be tough sledding for Robert Woods. I think the guys to play for the Rams are going to be on the ground. I think Robert Woods is going to have a bad week. I'm trying to pivot out of him in the league. I have him, and on one of my money teams that I have, I'm trying to find another option because I don't want to put him in. So Woods, if you have got a better option, he's going to be on the field. So if you have to play him, it's not the worst thing in the world. But if you got a better option, I will look elsewhere. And I feel pretty comfortable that I think he's going to be below that top 30 mark this week versus the vaunted Bears defense. And it feels good to say that as a Bear fan. Lastly, tight end, another guy playing tonight, Evan Ingram. Sit him. He's been terrible. I know he's playing a bad Philly defense versus tight ends. I think they're fourth most points allowed in tight ends this year is the Eagles defense. But the Giants he has done nothing against nobody. He's played bad defenses this year. He's at one game in double digits, and that was he had 11. Everything else he's at lower than that. And he's still owned in a lot of leagues. He's still rostered. He's still started in a lot of leagues. I think you're just starting to name at this point, not the player. I don't think he's someone that you should be trusting. So Evan Ingram, even though he's playing a bad defense, at this point with him, you gotta start looking elsewhere. And I don't think tonight's going to be any different. The Eagles' front seven is actually playing a little better. I think they're going to make life really, really hard on Daniel Jones, and I don't think he's going to find Ingram very much, just as he has all year. So I would say sit Evan Ingram, and he finishes out of the top 12. So it looks like we did get one start-sit question. So we did have a couple of people tuning in. So shout out to Jason Cruz, my old buddy from Benedictine, who was listening to this podcast. He hoping the podcast takes off. Thank you so much for listening. Wants to know if I would sit Lamb until Andy Dalton proves himself for Henry Ruggs. So we're talking about two rookie receivers here, CeeDee Lamb or Henry Ruggs. That's a pretty good question. And Henry Ruggs, if you remember the last time we saw him playing, had a really long touchdown for the Oakland Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Oakland this week is going to play Tampa Bay. That's a defense that has been really good. So my gut right now to that question would be I would stick with Lamb over Ruggs. CeeDee Lamb still saw volume on Monday night versus the Cardinals, especially late in the game. He looked to be the second read for Andy Dalton. He was looking Cooper first, Lamb second on most plays. Ruggs, I think, is more of a home run guy. He may get a 70-yard touchdown every once in a while, but he's not going to be a volume guy. The volume guy on that team is the Walrus, it's Darren Waller. So I think Lamb's still a safe bet to deliver some value, even with Andy Dalton being Andy Dalton. I think, again, you got to kind of do the same thing with Tua. I think you got to expect a tick down from him. For him, I think you're playing Lamb as probably your wide receiver 2. I think he probably is now a low-end 2 or a flex. But I still think he's someone who can play. I think he's someone who could probably play this week and feel okay about it. But I would – some weeks you may have better options. I wouldn't call Henry Ruggs a better option, especially against a good Tampa defense that made Aaron Rodgers and those guys look terrible last week. I would think that he still isn't as good a bet as Lamb, even if Lamb, you expect the value to tick down a little bit. So thanks, Jason, for that question. With that, we're right at about a half hour. I want to keep this to between 20 and 30 minutes every time I do a stream. So perfect time for us to sign off. So thanks so much for tuning in if you did. If you're listening after the fact, thanks for listening as well. We're going to try to get another show in this weekend at some point. I'm not sure exactly when. Watch the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, my Twitter. We will let you know when that's going to be, but it'll probably be a Bears-centric show. We'll probably talk about what to expect in the game coming up versus the Rams on Monday. We may even wait till Monday to do it. We'll see what happens, but we'll do a Bears-Rams preview show. That'll probably be our next video at some point in the next couple of days. So, again, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Like the Facebook page, follow on Twitter, do all that good stuff. Thanks so much, and have a good one, and thank you for tuning in.